welcome everyone, but I would ask that Mr. Bob Brown go ahead and let everyone know what the housekeeping items are for today.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Glover. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the regional building. My name is Bob Crum, the Executive Director here of the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission and the Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization. Thought I'd begin by just a few housekeeping items as an overview. So the Elizabeth River Crossing Task Force is actually an appointed subcommittee of our Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization Board. The HRTPO identified the challenges related to the ERC tolls as an important regional issue for discussion and appointed this task force to work with our partners from the Virginia Department of Transportation and our partners from ERC who have been at the table at all of our meetings to look at options for how we can move forward cooperatively in the best interest of our region. Our task force is, of course, the mayor of the city of Portsmouth. We have the mayor of the city of Hampton, the mayor of the city of Norfolk, also partners from the port and HR TAC. Our community advisory committee member could not make it today. But because we have a number of elected officials here, this is a public meeting. And as such, it was advertised publicly. And per our public meeting policy, we are recording it and it will be live streamed, as is our public meeting policy here at the regional building. As you speak today, if I could just ask, please, so that everybody can hear, particularly our guests at home. When you press your button, when it turns red, you're live. If it's green, you're not. So I apologize. It's a little backwards, but you can please press your button, let it turn red, and then you'll be good and audible. Please remember to close, shut it down then as you finish with your comments. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you with a recommendation that we maybe go around the table and just let everybody introduce themselves, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Crum. And so with that recommendation, if we could start with introductions, I'll start first with our guest, the Secretary of Transportation, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman. My name is Shep Miller. I'm a lifelong native of the city of Norfolk. I currently reside during the week in Richmond, serving the Commonwealth with the governor of Virginia. But my home is here and has been for the last 65 years. Glad to be here. I've been involved in this, and I'll talk a little bit about that since 2010 or so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Donnie Tuck, and I'm mayor of the city of Hampton.
Kenny Alexander, mayor of the city of Norfolk.
And John Lawson, Deputy Secretary of Transportation.
Mr. Chair, Stephen Bridge, Commissioner of Highways, Virginia Department of Transportation.
David Caudill, Division Administrator, Tolling Director for VDOT.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Farmer, the Chief Financial Officer at VDOT.
Chris Hall, District Engineer, VDOT for Hampton Roads.
Good afternoon. Anna Bonet from Elizabeth River Crossing.
Good afternoon. I'm Sherry Neal, Intergovernmental Affairs Manager for the City of Portsmouth.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noelle Saunders. I'm Executive Assistant to the Mayor of the City of Norfolk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Chapman, the City Manager for the City of Portsmouth.
Hi, Kevin Page, HR TAC.
Barbara Nelson, Port of Virginia.
And Bob Crum, HRPDC and HRTPO.
Thank you all once again. And of course, I am the chair, Mayor Shannon Glover of the great city of Portsmouth, Virginia. Moving along in our agenda, we do have a need for approval of the agenda. So if I could ask for a motion from the floor to approve the agenda.
Move approval.
All in favor? Aye. The agenda is approved. We've now come to item 3, public comment. The members of the public will be provided an opportunity. I believe we don't have any members for public comment today.
Mr. Chairman, I have not received any indication of public comment. I would recommend we just pause for a moment and call for any public comments from anyone in the audience. Seeing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll send it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Crum. Item number 4, The Virginia Secretary of Transportation and the Virginia Department of Transportation will brief the task force on the changes to the ERC toll relief program and outline the strategy for moving forward with the implementation of the revisions to the program. But before you get started, sir, I want to welcome you and your staff and your team, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir, and likewise for yours. If I might just take a couple minutes, as I mentioned when we were introducing each other for ourselves, I've been involved since 2010, sort of in this subject, in the sense that in that year, I was appointed to the board of the Highway Board, the CTB, excuse me, the CTB in 2010. And this matter came, the Elizabeth River crossings came to be during that administration, 2010 to 2014. And it was an interesting time, having grown up in the west side of Norfolk. I was well familiar with the Midtown Downtown Tunnel in Portsmouth and Norfolk, and you know, sort of the route down Hampton Boulevard from the base and the port, and those were my stomping grounds and still are. That's where I live. And so I was pretty interested in, and when Governor McDonald was running for office, there was a handful, or not a handful, there was a lot of us in the region who were pretty clear that we needed to do something about transportation in the Commonwealth. And we all know the history of that. And it ultimately ended up with 2313 and some other measures that raised a lot of money and created HR TAC and others as it moved forward. But when I was on the board and during that first term, this crossings deal was being negotiated. And the board at that time did not have oversight of that deal. The Public-Private Partnership Act, or whatever it was that was working through, did not require the board to weigh in, although we were briefed on it from time to time. We did not weigh in a formal way. We didn't approve or disapprove it. But I spoke a lot about it, and I spoke here in this room and other places about it. And I was concerned for a number of reasons that had to do with the tolling and the impact it would have on the residents and the people that used it. And I was pretty vocal about it. And I use the illustration of somebody that, since I lived in Norfolk, I talked about somebody who lived in Portsmouth and maybe worked at Centera Norfolk General, and they weren't at the highest level of the economic ladder there, and they came across that bridge, or excuse me, that tunnel. And the way the tolls were set at the time and were projected to be, that could be up to almost a $1,200 after-tax expense out of their pocket. So take somebody that's working in a $30,000 job at the hospital at that time, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, and tell them it's going to take $1,200 out of their pocket after tax just to keep going to work. And that's a big nut to have to swallow. So we talked about that some at the board level at the state. Of course, as I said, we didn't have a yes or no vote, but I spoke about it and I was concerned about it. And ultimately, the governors that have succeeded that time have worked with Elizabeth River Crossings very successfully. They've been very, very good at trying to get some toll relief in here. And so I'm sort of uniquely interested, which is one of the reasons I'm here today on this matter, is because I've lived and breathed it and I know about it. And so I'm pleased that we're continuing to make progress. We've got a proposal that we're advocating for, that we intend to go forward with, that will bring additional relief to the citizens of Hampton Roads above and beyond what we've done to this point. So I'm excited to be a part of that and be able to speak to it. And I won't go into the details now. Let the folks who go through this program. At the back of your presentation, at the very last slide, there's a great summary that just sort of lays it all out. And so I'd ask you as you go through not to get too hung up on the slides getting there, because it all gets summarized at the end in a very clear, concise way. And I'm a sort of picture graphic guy. So when I went to the proposal the other day, I said, let's just put it on one piece of paper and show everything we need. And frankly, we could probably just use that, but we're not going to. So we'll go through the presentation with your concurrence, Mr. Chairman, and get down to the brass tacks.
Please proceed, sir.
So with that, Mr. Bridge, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, before I ask David to come forward and give a quick or an overview of the slide presentation on the toll relief program, I thought it'd be good to go back in a little bit of history, just as you did, Mr. Secretary, and just say that in 2019, there was, in response to budget language that was proposed during the 2019 General Assembly session, the Secretary at the time was tasked to evaluate opportunities to mitigate the financial burdens to those users of the downtown and midtown tunnels. The last time I believe that this task group met, Mr. Chairman, was June 26th of 2019, and we gave an overview of opportunities that would exist within the current framework of the contract that we had with ERC. I'm happy to report that in November of 2021, the Commonwealth Virginia Department of Transportation and Elizabeth River Crossings did reach an agreement to increase the contribution to the toll relief program. And following that agreement between the department and ERC, we collectively undertook an assessment and a review of the program to identify the opportunities to expand the program, address the deficiencies of the program, and to provide greater relief to the region, or toll relief to the region. I should also note that during the General Assembly session this past year, 2022 session of the General Assembly, we saw two bills that were submitted. Senate Bill 522 and House Bill 567 that sought to increase the income thresholds to $45,000 for the residents of Norfolk and Portsmouth. So I'm going to ask David to come up and as he starts the presentation, but we've been working on this since our agreement with the ERC to be able to expand the opportunities. And we've taken the last, I want to say 6-7 months to be able to vet this through and in my opinion, identify true opportunities to reduce or help mitigate the burden of the tolls on the Midtown downtown to the users of the facility and the region.
Mr. Burge.
David?
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank all y'all for being here. Just a little background on myself. Again, my name's David Caudill. I'm with VDOT. I'm the Division Administrator for Tolling Operations. The reason why I'm up here talking about this program, I was there in the room when the thing was birthed, I guess you would say. I'm also responsible for Easy Pass for the Commonwealth. We have over 2 million accounts, 3 million transponders out there. And that turns out to be the mechanism which makes this, the automation much easier. So with that, that's a little opening. On the agenda, and I think we might have shuffled some slides around, Mr. Secretary. To your point, let's get right to the brass tacks. I've got a lot of slides to back up some of those points that I'll get to, but I'll give a little background and also the program revisions, talk about the 2022 adjusted parameters, and it'll all be on our matrix chart. The rebate in 2023 and the modeling according to that, and the adjusted parameters that we're recommending, and the anticipated schedule when we can launch this. So toll relief started basically with Amendment 5 back in 2015 and said it would begin in 2017. And so that initiated the development or the committee, a steering group committee, to get input from regional leaders. And at that time, the Deputy Secretary, Greenlee Johnson, was appointed to do that. And she had a good diverse group of folks on that committee. Essentially, it was $500,000 on an annual basis for a 10-year period. And the plan was to distribute that money efficiently and equitably over that 10-year period. In 2022, and that was the year that we made our first major adjustments, as the Commissioner mentioned, Amendment 9 provided the basis in 2021 and brought in a lot more money from ERC's contribution that we could distribute again to the folks who are economically disadvantaged. That period from when Amendment 9 was signed to the enrollment period at this point in 2021, end of 2021, was a very short period. And so we were adjusting parameters on the fly, and which required some back office and IT work. We were able to get it in prior to December 1st of 21. It is in place now, and those parameters are working as we speak. As Amendment 9 states, the 3.2 million is our first year contribution. It increases 3.5% every year over a 15-year period, and it can actually go to 20 years. We've got some reciprocity work to do to get that additional 5 years. It also made allowance for the actual operation and awareness component that didn't exist in the First Amendment, Amendment 5. So this may be, hopefully y'all can see that. This is that matrix that the secretary was talking about. It gets right to the point. The Amendment 5 allowed the program to begin in 2017, and through 2017 through 2021, the average number of enrollees we saw on an annual basis was just over 2,000. The geographical footprint for eligibility was just Portsmouth and Norfolk. The maximum income cap was set at 30,000. The transaction subsidy and the way it worked, for every ERC transaction that was created with an Easy Pass transponder, you got 75 cents per transaction. You'll see there was 1 year that we tried $1, and that was in 2018. And we found out that we actually used too much money that year. We exceeded the $500,000, so we had to back off. So for most of this period in here, 4 years, we stayed at 75 cents.
Colin,
Yes, sir.
if I can make something to make sure everybody's perfectly clear. You see the top year line, 2017 through 2021. If you follow it over to the right, it shows an ERC contribution of $3 million. So that's over that period of time, right? That's not an annual number. That's over the 2017, 2021 period. So it's really, when we're comparing it, for example, to the next line down, which shows 3.2 million, that's an annual number. And the point is, in the earlier slide, you saw where we started at $500,000. We're now at 3.2 million, all right? So I think there's a lot of credit to be given to ERC and VDOT working collaboratively together to get from $500,000 a year to now 3.2 million. And frankly, if that had not happened, we wouldn't be talking about what we're talking about today. So I want to make clear, when you look at those ERC contribution columns, second from the right, that the first number should be divided by the number of years there, take you to 500,000. The second line is just 1 year, 3.2 million. And that's profound in my opinion.
Yep.
Mr. Secretary, if I might, since you referenced this being the summary slide.
Yeah, it was in the back, but we moved it to the front.
But I think the history that David's going to present will help us make more sense of this slide. If we could go through the rest of the slide deck and then come back to this slide, I think it would be very helpful to the members of the committee to better understand this matrix.
Thank you, Mr. Birch, for guiding me.
I'm sorry, sir.
No, I appreciate it.
So we'll come back to the slide, but it does show the progression of the contribution, as well as, and you'll notice here that the income level or the transaction subsidy increased from 75 cents to 50% of the 2-axle toll. And we changed the transaction parameter. Prior to 21 or prior to 22, we were looking at an 8 minimum. Rolling on. Yes, sir. All right, well, we are going to the next slide. And this also is probably something we'll come back to, but what we're recommending on the program going forward in 2023 are these dates. I'll come back to that if I could. There we go. And So here we go. Total Relief Program and its development. And this is what I was talking to earlier, as far as me being there when the program was initially laid out. It was basically a steering committee that was represented by folks, normal folks, agency folks, business folks, military, schools in the area, got to sit on that committee and provide feedback on how best to distribute this $500,000. Now, keep in mind that $500,000 is not a large amount of money, but we wanted to distribute it in a meaningful way. What we didn't want to do is, have someone 2 cents a transaction, but we knew that we did something more than, $2 or $3, it wouldn't go very far and wouldn't last a full year. So the committee worked through all the different discussions, and basically the primary thing that came out of the initial meetings was that we're going to call it total relief. This is the first time that we were aware of anything like this in the U.S. We were setting new ground here, and so there was nothing to go by. And so we felt pretty proud of the fact that we've actually delivered a program. But what we came up with is that VDOT was the recommended administrator. That was not clear in the Amendment 5 language, but based on our infrastructure, based on the fact that it is Easy Pass rolls under VDOT, given the fact that we've got walk-in centers where folks can apply for the program, and given that infrastructure, to build that through some other entity would just add to the cost. And the idea was to minimize the cost of the operations, make sure we can give all that $500,000 out as efficiently as we could. And so with those parameters that we came up with, and we modeled these, you had to be a Norfolk Portsmouth resident. We set a cap of $30,000. And what we had in our model, we had a bunch of different parameters that we could change the levers on to see if we could basically use all the funds for that year. You had to apply in person, have a valid Easy Pass account. And again, that's that mechanism that's most automated that we could do efficiently to account for our trips and the credits. And this last bullet here, record 8 or more transactions before relief kicks in for all those 8 plus the additional ones. That was set so that we didn't go through the money too quickly and we can make it for a full year. As I stated, we stayed with 75 cents, except for 1 year we went to $1. And it was that $1 after the end of that year, we outspent our $500,000 contribution. So we knew we had to back down, and we went back to 75 cents. Another thing to point out here is that the credits were applied the following month. So you had to be use the program or use the facility for 30 days before you saw the credit hit your Easy Pass account. And so, there's a lot of, as we discussed later, a lot of front-end money that had to go into it before you could get credit for the effort that you did. We had an annual basis. The enrollment period ran from December to February 15th. And then March 1st, the transactions occurring on March 1st, ERC transactions, began the transactions you'd get a credit for. And then by the 10th of the following month, that credit would show up on your account as a lump sum. So the general statistics, and these are rough statistics because it's over that 5-year period. But the average enrollees we saw, the number was 2,150. The average monthly benefit came in around $21. The split as far as the enrollee based on residency, 2/3 were in Portsmouth, 1/3 were in Norfolk. And a typical usage was 25 transactions per month. So that's 3 round trips per week. And what we're seeing, and I know it's when we first started these committee meetings, the assumption was that you would use it every day. So that'd be 10 transactions, 5 round trips. The reality was, and we looked at the numbers, it wasn't that. The usage wasn't every day. And so there was, as stated, a little bit less than 3 transactions or 3 round trips per month, which was less than anyone figured. And so when we did our numbers, that's what allowed us to adjust the levers in the manner we did to get through the 500,000. And there's a note there on the bottom that, and this is also a little interesting, 45% of the enrollees on a given month didn't hit the threshold. So 45% of that 2150 number didn't see any credits because they didn't get to the 8th transaction. So there was a lot of people making 7 and 6s, but that wasn't enough to trigger the credit. So as I mentioned, the Amendment 9 kicked in, the 2022 adjusted parameters. We didn't have a big window to do a lot of modeling. We did some back of the envelope calculations and came up, we left the 30,000 threshold in place. We left the residency footprint in place, same enrollment period. But what we did do is we changed the transaction parameter and made it from 1 to 10. So we maxed it out at 10. So you got credit on your first toll transaction versus having to get to that 8 before you got that credit. The rebate was 50% of the two axle toll. So it went from 75 cents to 97 cents off peak and $1.25 on peak. And then the rebate, we changed that wait period for a month to make it within 24 hours. There is a few, it's a batch process. There are a few that have to go 48 hours, but 99% of them see that money within 24 hours. Based on our current review of our months so far, we'll probably come in just under $500,000 spent this year. So we did not hit the $3.2 million that was contributed. So what does that mean? Let's go back and actually put a model together and set these parameters so that we can do much better as far as absorbing the funds that come our way. And this is what we did. So these are some of the models that we pulled, there's a lot more than this, but these are the ones that seem to make sense. And where we landed was let's raise the income cap from 30 to 50,000. Let's keep the max of 10 per week. 50% discount, still good, but let's expand that footprint from Norfolk, Portsmouth into 15 localities. And the 15 localities that we landed on was the TPO. So it's Williamsburg, York, Coaston. It's all the members of the TPO. And when we ran the model, you can see the distribution of the annual division or amount of tolls going to certain jurisdictions. So you can clearly see the ones closest to the project use the facility more. So those residents would naturally get on an aggregated basis more money of more credits. As you get farther away from the project, it starts to diminish. So just a review on the 2023 adjustments, the annual income raised that cap to 50,000, expanded the footprint of the geographical region to the Transportation Plan Organization region, 50% off two axles. Of course, those are Easy Pass transponder accounts or transactions just for the downtown and midtown tunnels. So there's other toll roads, but this just would apply to downtown and midtown tunnels. Maximum 10 transactions per week and a rebate applied within 24 hours almost all the time. So let me back up here. So the one thing that's not stated here was that, this is what we're proposing. We've got levers here now that if we're not using enough of the funds by the end of this year, this time next year, we can pull these levers and adjust it. So maybe maximum transactions at 10 is not enough, right? So we make it 12. Maybe the threshold, the income threshold is not high enough. We make it 55. We'll know more when that data comes in. The other biggest thing here that's not shown, where I had that 2.5 month window for enrollment, the plan now is to do continuous enrollment. So this takes care of folks who aren't there during that 2.5 months. Maybe they're deployed, maybe they moved and they come in at March and they've missed that window and they have to wait a whole year. Now that's not the case. The idea is to open it up continuously. It helps me operationally in that I don't have a big queue of people show up, 2 days before the closure date, which is no good for the people waiting in line, no good for me. So this will take some of that pressure off. I think I hit my points. Mr. Secretary, I'll pass it back to you. Questions?
So,
back to the slide.
Go back to the table. Do we have the anticipated schedule in here still, Steve?
I think that was right. That was slide 6.
Yeah, I think that's important. So here's what I want to sort of trumpet. This has happened over a period of time, right? It didn't just happen today or in the last 6 months. but it's gone from 500 to 3.2.
Do you want the previous slide or you want the schedule, sir?
Give me the schedule.
Oh,
Gone from 500 to 3.2. I told you when I did my introduction that I've spent my entire life in the city of Norfolk. And I'm kindred to the city of Portsmouth because of my next door neighbor. But I would tell you, it struck me that, you know, there are a lot of people in Hampton Roads that use this tunnel that don't live in Norfolk and they don't live in Portsmouth, and yet they're in the same boat. So it made me think really hard about that. And I will tell you that I talked to the mayor of Portsmouth, I talked to the mayor of Norfolk, and I suggested that we should be doing this Hampton Roads TPO wide. And in my view, one of the greatest things that's happened in the last 30 or 40 years in Hampton Roads is the formation of the HR tax. And it has just changed the game in a huge way. And it's not just the fact that it's raised money and built a lot of things. It's also the fact that it's brought the leaders of all these cities and counties together at a table and had to figure these things out together. So it's provided a vehicle to spend a lot of time with each other, to work together towards a common end for Hampton Roads, not for just their cities or their counties. And we all know that individually, none of us are going to survive unless the region survives. If the region dies, no one city or county is going to be okay. And so really at the end of the day, and you know, in the 80s and 90s, we all talked about regions and mega regions, and those are the ones that really make things go. And I don't think any of that's changed. And I will tell you that there was no hesitation on the part of the mayors of Portsmouth and Norfolk to expand this to the other cities and counties in Hampton Roads. And I think that's a testimony to sort of where we are versus where we were many years and decades ago. So I think that's just really important. Senator Lucas, as was talked about earlier, had a bill in to increase the income eligibility of $45,000. And we exceeded that, right? So that bill did not go through, but we were directed to do some studies and to come back and make a proposal. We exceeded the 45,000. So we no longer have a sign up between January and March. It's sign up continuously. Anytime you want to sign up, you sign up, you're in. So we've expanded the eligibility in terms of income. We've expanded it across the entire region. We've changed it from having a window to sign up to anytime you can sign up. And we've increased the transaction subsidy over time. And all that comes because VDOT and ERC worked together to make sure that that was there. So I want to really commend Anna and her team, Anna Bonet and her team at ERC, as well as VDOT for making that happen. So, you know, it's a big change from where we started. And I'm just really happy that we're there. And I hope you all are as happy as I am. So with that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Secretary Miller, for those comments. And at this time, I'd just like to open up the floor and ask the mayors, do they have any comments to make regarding the presentation and thoughts on this proposal? So, mayors, Mayor Alexander, sir.
I don't have any comments, just more of thank yous to Secretary Miller and his staff from VDOT and Anna at ERC for working collaboratively with both Norfolk and Portsmouth to continue to bring toll relief, not only to our respective cities, but also now to include the entire region. So Secretary, thank you for your leadership. And he has been laser focused on this issue from the very first time that the tolls were introduced. Secretary Miller and I worked on pieces of legislation that I never introduced, but he had been proposing legislation from the very beginning on how to bring about change and give more relief. But more importantly, his exact words, we need to unpack the potential in Hampton Roads. We cannot be be tied down because we can't move goods, services, and people. So, Secretary, you've been true to your word, and I want to say thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mayor Tuck, sir?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Secretary Miller and VDOT. And as one who's on the periphery of the impacts of the tolls on the Midtown, the downtown tunnel, I want to say this, that I think within the last 3 to 4 years, I read an article, op-ed in the Virginian Pilot that said as a region, we had let the city of Portsmouth down because of those tolls on the tunnels. And I think it was an HRTPO meeting, I mentioned that. And so we formed this committee. And I think the fact that the secretary was an integral part of HRTPO and heard all those discussions, that it did give him a different perspective of how to address these concerns. And so when he and I had a conversation yesterday evening about what was being proposed, I expressed to him the fact that he was here for those discussions, again, gave him somewhat a unique perspective and thanked him for opening it up, because I think if we just kept it for the residents of Norfolk and Portsmouth, that we wouldn't have what we have now, which is something really for the region to celebrate. And as you said previously, I think that over the last 6 years, and I can't tell you what went on prior to my becoming a mayor and being a part of the regional boards, I can't tell you all the deliberations that went that occurred, but I do know that as a region, we really do work together well. And I think this advances all those aspirations and things that we hope to accomplish that much more. So again, congratulations to you and to your team, for this is very, very transformative for the region.
Thank you, Mayor Tuck. And if I may, just to add a few comments, one of the things that impressed me about this whole process and the work that has been done, I had the pleasure of meeting with Ana Bonet and the CEO of Abertis this week. And one of the things that we talked about in the discussion was the tolls. Of course, that was a big part of the discussion. And what I was impressed with was the commitment from Abertis and ERC to work collaboratively with the state, our Secretary of Transportation, as well as VDOT, to bring this sort of program to our citizens. The recognition and the acknowledgement of the burden that is put upon some of our most vulnerable citizens, we can all understand. And listening to Secretary Miller, who has been at the table with us throughout this journey. I'm the newest guy at the table, but I can share with you that Portsmouth was certainly adversely impacted in a big way with the new tolls. That being said, we're grateful for this relationship and for what we have all been able to do together. It's a good start in the right direction. I assume that we will continue to have to look at the program as we go forward. Adjustments will perhaps need to be made, but the encouraging part and the thankful part is to the point of my fellow mayors, Mayor Alexander and Mayor Tuck. We are a region, and we intend to work together to improve the quality of life for all the citizens of Hampton Roads in our respective cities. So I thank you, Ms. Ana Bonet. I thank you, Secretary of Transportation Miller, and the VDOT team, and everyone who put their hands in the dirt, so to speak, to bring us to this point. And we look forward to sharing this good news with our communities.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Byrd, sir.
If I might, David, if you could go to the next slide and maybe have a recap of what you will see next. And we appreciate the feedback from the committee to be able to advance the program. But I think this is the exciting part of the conversation then, that starting in October, you'll start seeing a public awareness campaign, again, in a very collaborative manner, to be able to get the word out about the changes to the program with ERC, Anna's team, and the VDOT team here locally. And then, as David said, one of the big changes is going to be for that continuous enrollment, something that the program has had a very narrow window of opportunity. We'll start that enrollment period at that point in time and link that back to this. So as you said, Mr. Chairman, you hope that we're going to reevaluate the program. That is a commitment back from the department and ERC to have a continual look at this program to continue to increase the opportunities that exist to this. And as David said, there are many levers that are yet to be determined on this. So we will be reevaluating the program next summer with the anticipation that if there are parameter changes, we would bring that back to this committee with our recommendations at that point to be able to continue to have relief back to the region. So a lot of, we have still work ahead of us, but this starts laying out, I think, what the area citizens will start to see and be affected immediately by these changes.
And if I could, sir, ask one question, so the citizens are clear, with this toll relief program that's already in place and the continuation, the individuals will see those adjustments come off immediately. It won't be like it used to be. Is that correct?
We are making those adjustments within 24 hours. So as David said, there are some that may not see it within the first 24 hours, but most of them will have it within the 48-hour period.
Very good. And I do have one other question. How do we determine, or how is it determined who qualifies? I know the numbers based on the annual incomes, but do individuals have to report their income or show some type of information that qualifies them for the program?
So there is, on the continuous enrollment, it is a face-to-face enrollment process. It's a very brief one-page name, address, contact information. They do bring some form of either it's a tax statement, W-2, regarding what their salary is, and they stay below the 50,000 cap currently. And, it used to be a big deal where you brought some sort of bill to establish your residency. That won't be, they'll still do that, but it won't be as crucial as it used to be going forward here.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions or concerns at this time? Ms. Neal, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Secretary Miller and VDOT team at ERC. Appreciate everything that you guys have done and are doing. Of course, I'm the person that marshals these bills that Senator Lucas and Delegate Scott had. It was in our 2022 legislative package for the city. I'm grateful to see the information that I saw up there because trying to get data was very, very hard. And so what I would like is if I had some kind of contact with people, because I do have some other questions that I'd like to get clarified, because this was a continuing legislation. According to the letter sent by Senator Howell, you're going to report back and we're going to take it forward. So I still have a few other questions, and this may not be the appropriate place or time to ask those. So if I could get that information, it would be appreciated.
Mr. Chair, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. Any other questions? Well, thank you all. Bob?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, perhaps as VDOT kicks off the public awareness campaign on October the 15th, Mr. Secretary and Mr. Commissioner, the full Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization will meet on October 20th. And Mayor Tuck, as chair of the HRTPO, perhaps that would be a great opportunity to roll this out for all of our HRTPO partners. And then after that meeting, we could have all the localities promote this information on their social media, et cetera, to start moving it to residents. So I just wanted to lay that out as an opportunity.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Crum, I'd say yes, we'll get David back here to be able to give the full briefing as we did today and be able to promote that. So yes.
Thank you for the recommendation, sir.
Mr. Crum, it's always nice to have meetings I need to go to in Hampton Roads. And I particularly like them on Fridays and Mondays. So, but I'll take them any day I can.
I will file that for future reference.
Well, thank you both. We've now come to item number 6. Any other business that we need to conduct at this meeting, sir?
No, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our agenda for today.
On behalf of the committee and task force, I want to thank you all for traveling and spending time with us for this productive meeting. I wish you all well, stay safe and healthy. Enjoy your weekend.